Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Upsurge Junior League Playoffs Week 2 matchup between Wulfpack Empire and Hard Hat Zone Yellow. My name is Finnick. Joining me on the desk today is Rebel Fox, and we're getting ready to go with this best-of-3 matchup. How are we feeling tonight?
Super good. Always happy to see some playoff games in the UGL here. A really big matchup between these two. We were talking about it just before we started, and I think it's an important one for a couple of different reasons between Wulfpack and Hard Hat Zone. I know specifically both of them are sister teams, and their opposite part in this league, unfortunately, have both been dropped. So this is a game for pride between these two.
Yeah, especially because we're in the lower bracket, right? Wolfpack, unfortunately, got tossed out of the upper bracket and now has to play their way back in. But Hard Hats on Yellow come off a victory last week. So elimination match for both of these teams. One's coming in a little bit hotter. Let's see how that one plays out as we get ready to go into the pro draft. What are we looking forward to tonight?
I think both these teams have relatively similar styles out of the mid lane and expecting at least a little bit of protection, a little bit of scaling out of there. So we're killing attention a bit more to junglers and side lanes here. You have, of course, Wulfpack Empire. They like to play around the top side of the map. Hard Hat Yellow. Their bot lane isn't necessarily their focal point, but more specifically, we know Wulfpack. They've made a bit of a substitution. They have some of the newer player. It's possible we see them be able to take advantage of maybe less synergy coming out of Wulfpack Empire's bottom side.
Yeah, this was a substitution they made, I believe, week 6 of the regular season. Deba Webb in AD carry. Don't have too much information on him as far as what he's played in Upsurge, but we do know he has played some late game AD carries. Frosty has been playing a lot of engaged supports, as has Dragon Mooncake, so that might be something interested to look out for as we approach into this draft. I think as we're talking about some of the flex picks that we might see come up.
Yeah, I mean, I think both top laners actually played Maokai, and they've done it a couple of times throughout the split. So that's something to at least keep your eye on. You know that Karma's risen in priority fairly among pretty much every single league across all competitive. Ezreal's really popular as well, some in that particular regard. And then even in the jungle, I think that's the one position where we're not going to have much interlace between these two. I think Azir's the only one that the mid laners outside of all the scaling that you could see contested. So at the moment, I'm thinking this is going to be more targeted on both sides towards top and ADC, where the pools might intersect a bit more.
Yeah, and we are just about ready to go into the draft here, just waiting on one of the teams to ready up. So what else do you think is worth talking about before we get into the draft here?
I will say, if I recall, Hard Hat Yellow actually plays a fair amount of Yasuo, or at least they have throughout the remainder of the season. And so if you see that come out, it's imperative that they get things like Maokai is not a bad example, but things like Malphite out of the jungle, you have Jarvan, Zac, things that provide those knockups. And we've seen them go back to those picks time and time again to try to get that Yasuo going. So it wouldn't be shocking to see them pick for things that have knockups. Not to mention both bot laners play a lot of the hook champions in Nautilus and Thresh. The big difference is I think it's actually Dragon Moon who only has played 3 champions throughout the remainder of the split. They played Nautilus, Leona, and then Nami as the 3rd champion. So I think if the support pools start to get pinched or you wait too long in the draft for that, you're going to have to reach down in your pockets to find something a little bit further in the pool than we might expect them to.
I do expect Nautilus to be a contested pick here, as well as potentially the Mordekaiser or the Maokai. Both the top laners have played that one bit this season. Maokai may actually be banned away here if neither team wants to first pick it, because that is very strong pickup for both of these teams. Allows them to set up for some of the team fights that they like taking with the likes of the Misfortune or the Vel'Koz bot lane, which is something that Polhammer has pulled out throughout the season.
They have. The Vel'Koz would be an interesting one. And as you said, also the Misfortune. So it's just pure team fighting out of that ADC role. And on the other side, I've seen a lot of Ezreal and a lot of Ophelia. So another really, really big, heavy, and kind of more scaling style, but still really good at team fighting for what they've got. And we see the pick ban is now underway.
Yeah, Silas and Senna both being banned away by the side of Wulfpack Empire. This is kind of to be expected. Silas has been a pickup from both of these teams in the jungle position, as Volibear actually gets picked up. First occurrence for either of these teams this season, as the Aphelios is the immediate response from Hard Hat Yellow as addition to the set, which is a flex for them.
That it is. The Heimerdinger banned out by Hard Hat Yellow, of course, is going to be that focus out of the mid lane because it hasn't been, I don't think, let through pretty much all season due to the number of games it's played. Now we get to see Wulfpack's response. As you said, the Aphelios, the set, really good for Hard Hat Yellow. They play that ADC rather well. And as you said, the set, my apologies, flexes to a couple of different lanes as well. And on the opposite side, wow, we're zooming through this draft right now. The Volibear, Varus, Nautilus, all really contested picks at a very high level, very strong picks in their own right. And so far, I'm loving the way that Wulfpack Empire has drafted this.
Yeah, interesting to see the Nautilus be picked up here by Wulfpack Empire when the Thresh is available. It's mostly a pick away, I think, from Hard Hat Yellow, forcing them onto the Leona pick, which does do well into the Nautilus, but does give you quite a bit of aggression with the Varus. We don't know which version of Varus we're going to see, whether it's going to be the Lethality, Arcane Comet build, or if it's going to be the on-hit build. Kog'Maw and Kayle, though, being banned away by both these teams in the second round.
We haven't seen pretty much any solo lane at the moment. We'd expect at least the set can be flexed, and Volibear can be flexed a little bit depending, but both of them can be junglers as well. So making sure to take away more solo laners on both sides to ensure that their pools are going to be pinched a little bit further down even than you'd expect, which is why the scaling, especially Cassiopeia, Kayle, Kog'Maw, all getting pinched off. Doesn't matter for Hard Hat Yellow, though, because they find themselves a victor.
Yeah, this is a pick that Slashdev has played a bit this season, has seen some success on, scales well into the late game. We're starting to see this draft really show towards that late game with the Aphelios and the Victor. I will expect the set to go top lane if that's the case, and for them to actually hold the set as a flex and pick their jungler last pick here, as we see the Corki come in the mid lane for Team Wulfpack Empire.
Not intensely shocking. Again, that's been the real late game option here, and especially against something like a Leona and a set having both the combination of Valkyrie and really good front to back style of team fighting. That's important. Now, the Hecarim to me is also really interesting because it is usually a jungler, but with teleport changes a little while back, I know I've seen top laners experimenting potentially with the possibility of that speed up alongside Ghost with Nimbus Cloak as being this massive engage threat / assassin for backliners. So it's possible we see a little bit of flexibility depending on the matchup here.
And kind of as expected, last pick jungler comes out from Hard Hat Yellow. That will be the Rek'Sai. They have played quite a bit of this throughout the season. Set going into the top lane. This, to me, looks like your mid to late game comp. They have quite a bit of early game, though, with the Rek'Sai as well. To snowball one of the lanes. I expect them to play more towards that top lane, get the set snowballing to give their carry some time to farm up.
Yeah, you look at the side of Hard Hat Yellow, and I think even in the bottom lane, Aphelios, Leona isn't bad into Varus, my apologies, Nautilus. And if this is not a lethality Varus, where you're going the on-hit build, the Aphelios' early gun setup is really important, but the Leona counters Nautilus. So the lane priority should go the way of Hard Hat Yellow, as well as you said, top lane, set's pretty good, and Rek'Sai has a lot more agency, I'd say, than something like Hecarim, or is easier to execute on than something like Hecarim. So the early side lane pressure is here for Hard Hat Yellow. The question then gets put onto Wulfpack Empire. Does Corki have enough agency in mid lane to get out and assist alongside the Hecarim? Or potentially, does Hecarim have the creativity to get out and cancel a lot of those ganks or find those for himself?
Yeah, lane priority is going to be a bit of a tough one to assess early in the game when you have a Corki and a Victor. Both can grab lane priority, but both like to set back and farm. Victor obviously going to be poking with his Q, Corki a bit shorter range, so should end up getting the early trades going his way. That said, Victor not able to grab lane priority until he hits 1150 gold and gets the upgrade on his E, so we'll see how the Corki plays with that and if they're able to get some early objectives with the Corki and the Hecarim.
We'll see whether that's the case, of course. And again, the Hecarim and the Rek'Sai are both really, really good ganking junglers early on if you're able to get them into lane. Again, I think Rek'Sai has much better and more creative ganking paths with the tunneling than something like Hecarim, where Hecarim is a bit more trying to think of the word for arm wrestling, where you just kind of have to force your way into a lane with a lot of movement speed or a lapse in vision, something along those lines. So, and that's why I do think it's a little bit more difficult for Bandito to get into these lanes to put the pressure on. Now, if you can help out your Volibear, if you can help out your Varus and your Nautilus, if you can help out your Corki in the early game, there's plenty that you can do to try to take control of the map. But again, for at least right on face value, I do think Fur is going to be able to have a much easier time with that.
Yeah, especially, as you said, those creative gank pathings has a very similar type of gank style to the likes of a Zac, which is something that Vera has played a bit of throughout the season. We can talk a little bit more about this top lane matchup, though, because I think it's Volibear is a pick that has only risen in priority over the last patch or so when he got a round of buffs. So what do we make of this kind of new guard versus old guard top lane in the top lane?
The set really excels at a lot of burst trading, especially due to the fact that, of course, the Haymaker is really good at trading back or canceling some bit of a trade, depending on when you're timing. True damage really hard to have. And then even through a burst trade, if you trade equally set, usually you're going to lose that because of his health regeneration. Volibear, on the other opposite hand, if you want to play for that burst trade, you're going to see the Emax, which is why if you're going to go that route, I want to see the Doran's Ring early on, because it helps with mana regeneration, helps with execution of minions, and helps with a little bit of the damage and poke from that E to let you approach the wave. But if you don't want to play that style, if you want to play extended fight, then what you do, you either go Conqueror, you go Grasp of the Undying, and you go W Max, and you take an extended fight against Set. You walk into him, let him fight you, and keep taking it. As long as you get 2-3 Ws off and you get your Conqueror stacked pretty quickly, you can take the very extended fight against the Set before a lot of armor starts coming in. That's why I expect Set either with an Executioners or a Thornmail early, because when that comes through, Volibear has a lot less agency in the laning phase.
Do you think this Volibear is going to go for the AD build, the AP build, or the tank build here? Place your bets now.
I'd say AD. AD just seems to be the most consistent across all things. AP doesn't really do much as if you don't just like absolutely smash your laning phase. Tank isn't bad either, but it seems as though Volibear's like basically his livelihood lives on his ability to do damage during the course of a fight. So if you're full tank, it's harder to kill you. But you also only are really a CC bot. If you've got Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King, something like that, at least a little bit of damage, maybe like a bruiser build, then you're going to be able to do a lot more with the time that you've got in terms of attacking, doing things like that. That's why I expect, at minimum, Trinity Force, if not a little bit more damage coming through for the Volibear.
And before we throw it to a word from our sponsor, any final words for either of these teams, win conditions, and the like?
I'm interested to see how the late game will fare with an Aphelios Victor versus a Corki and a Varus. The consistent damage and front to back easily goes the way here for the side of Wulfpack if they get to that late game. But again, with the early game dominance here from Hard Hat Yellow, I think that's going to be the challenge. I think Fur is going to be the point to look at as the game starts, just because of his ability to affect the map positively.
All that being said, that's all the time we have for pregame analysis. So a little word from our sponsor, and then we will be right back. Don't touch that browser. UJL, right around the corner.
Started with a vision of quality, a vision of uniformity.
We took the time to create something familiar yet refreshing, something with a bit of change.
Designed to fit any brand's unique vision.
It's YouTube Music. Download the app today and get a trial of Music Premium on us. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upsurge Junior League Playoffs Week 2 lower bracket matchup between Wulfpack Empire and Hard Hat Zone Yellow. My name is Finnick. Joining me on the desk today is Rebel Fox, and we're getting ready to go in the first game of this best of 3. On the blue side, it is Wulfpack Empire. Dripix in the top lane, Bandito in the jungles, Wagless in the mid lane, Debaweb in AD carry, and Frosty in support.
And on the red side, we have Hard Hat Yellow with Soloco in the top lane, Führer in the jungle / DW in the mid lane, Bullhammer in the ADC role, and Dragon Mooncake in that support role.
And as we see, 5-point start from both of these teams, so nothing too out of the ordinary. Hecarim, however, went for the ward, then trinket strat, so always nice to see that as he starts towards the bottom side of the map.
That you do. And it's just a pure 5-man start, actually, for a hook champion is a little bit curious. I'm curious also if this Leona wants to make this late invade happen with only 2 members. I don't think they can, especially since Debo Webb is even slammed the door on that possibility coming in here.
Yep, so early vision control going over to the side of Wulfpack Empire. Able to get 1 ward down, a whole ward, but that is more than Hardhead's on Yellow was able to do, and he'll be able to keep an eye on his Scuttle Crab, opting not to start on the red buff, but instead going for the straight Raptors start on the Hecarim as Führer starts on the top lane with the red buff, gonna go to Krugs.
This is something we typically see with like Kayn, where you go completely top to bottom clear, especially if you want to go like you just want to back afterwards. This used to be what was called, it was a Predator back, where you would take all 3 of your top side camps. You usually go red Raptors into Krugs, and then you can back go to your blue buff, and then immediately have Predator boots up. The strength of that was that it set up a very good full clear for you, as well as getting you your Predators very early. Now, without that item, it's a little bit harder to get. But we see Bandito actually goes from red buff immediately to Krugs. And again, I'm expecting a back here. Otherwise, the time it takes him to get to the other side of the jungle is going to be a little bit high. I would rather see the back come through here, see him get an item, and then head up to his blue buff and potentially contest for that top side grab.
Yeah, and before the game, we were talking a little bit about runes. Web opting for the Lethality Varus here, but interestingly, you were talking about Conqueror on the Volibear. Dripix actually opting for the press of the attack here.
I've seen the same kind of adaptation here. I guess the idea is that because Conqueror, it's really good for kind of individual fights as well. I do think that you could go things... Oh, let's do a fight here.
That's just trades.
Burst damage, you want to go here for the Volibear. I suppose the press the attack isn't bad for that type of style, which again is the reason you see the Doran shield, because it helps him regenerate through some of those plays. I do think that plays a little bit into the set's laning phase, as opposed to playing against it, kind of turning away from that. But I guess turning into the skid is what Dripix is going for in this particular case, and we'll see. Obviously, that trade worked out for him to some extent.
Yeah, and as you did mention, Bandito went for the Predator back, despite not having Predator as the rune of choice. Grabs the brown boots, starts working on his clear towards the top side of the map. Bottom Scuttle Crab will be taken by Führer for the time being, as he did spend quite a bit of time mid to not get any summoner spells out as Wireless. So jungler's about even at the moment, as far as time spent is concerned.
Yeah, now Hecarim is going to end up on the top side of the map here, where the wolves were taken and then into the blue and grump. The problem is his camps are going to spawn with raptors and eventually Krugs, so what needs to happen after the Scuttle Crab is a little bit of time in between when he takes the crab and when he decides to go for that bottom side and clear up. See more trading.
Nice haymaker. Nice haymaker. That facebreaker almost put Dripix into turret range there, but Sulko is forced to back here from just the trades and regen from Dripix. I do think the early execs will be necessary here, as you were saying early game. I hope to see the Bramble Vest, actually. Just given the rest of their comp, I feel like tank set is a little bit nicer than just going for full bruiser, but we'll see how he decides to do that.
Now, what was nice about this situation was that despite the fact that Soloco did have to TP back to lane to catch what was going to be there, Bandito was in a really good position to potentially gank. And after that Krug, or the Scuttle Crab take on the top side, obviously was going to look for that so that he could clear from Scuttle or from his Krugs up the rest of the map. And because of that, not only did that gank not amount to anything because of the back from Solo kill, but also his Raptors were then taken by Führer in a counter trade for that jungle potentially. So Führer gets a camp, Soloco doesn't get ganked, and he's still able to catch a fair amount of the wave. It actually didn't end up too poorly here for him on the set.
Yeah, meanwhile, we see Dripix opting to start with the tank build, so going for what I assume is going to be the early Ninja Tabis, just to deal with Set. Obviously, his abilities pretty much all proc on hit effects except for the Haymaker, so nice to see that one come out. Assuming this is the early Ninja Tabis from Dripix.
Yeah, would like to see that from Dripix, especially because he tends to be winning these burst trades with press the attack.
Yeah, Soloco gets nice haymakers in to deal with most of the damage, but the follow-up from Dripix is just so dank, and we see Bandito already popping the 5-minute dragon without really too much wave priority in the mid lane. This really came off of Devil Web and Frosty, so nice dragon take there as he looks to approach mid lane and scare the Victor off of the wave.
found very little right there. As you said, scared him off the wave at best, but didn't really accomplish much. So the big thing was, I did end up finding that dragon, I think, as a sneak. So Führer went to defend his topside camps after having taken the Raptors from Bandito, and that did open up Bandito on bottom side because Corki has been pushing pretty decently out of the mid lane, especially with the TP back. And then you see in bottom lane even Devo Web and the play actually now coming here.
Quick engage from Dragon Moon as Frosty. He's taken out to 300 health. Ignite goes down. Flashback from Frosty. He will stay alive for the time being. Devo Web will end up keeping the Leona off of the ADC, but Führer is making his way down. Frosty trying to regen a bit. Here comes Führer. Dragon Mooncake, look for the Zenith Blade, finds it. Führer is here. Flashback from Dragon Mooncake as the TP gets channeled. First Blood goes over to the Rex side. The Devil Web does a lot of damage to Führer. Flash forward from Drippix, gets the pull, and Drippix gets the kill. 2 for 1 in favor of Wulfpack Esports on that bottom lane. A beautiful DP from Drippix.
And even crazier is they go underneath the tower for the Nautilus, who's got some CC to work with and a good amount of damage from Devo Web. I like that he traded immediately on the Pole Hammer to get that trade kill. But even if the TP didn't come in from Drippix, I think he even gets the Rek'Sai. It was a little bit of a fumbled dive on bottom side. And yeah, you get a little bit back for Solo Cup. A really, really nice defense of that bottom side. They lose first blood, but they do get a kill for both their Volibear and their Varus in this laning phase. Phenomenal little play coming out from Wulfpack Empire. Yeah,
really good communication coming out there. That's something that really does not put sound like Devo Web's a newer addition to the team. That is just like one of those things where you trust your ADC, say, hey, I need a TP, and you just go.
You do, and the call was really nice. I do like that Drippix was able to come down there. If that dive were executed a little bit better, then it would have been necessary for Drippix to get down there. I think just to trade 1 kill, if not a little bit more, over. But because of the kind of the fumble, they didn't need him as much. But certainly, I do like that call. I like the fact that the point out that you made, which is that he's a relatively new addition to this roster, and the trust is still there to make sure that they're going to be able to defend him. Didn't have level 6 yet, doesn't have a ton of damage because he's going lethality, didn't have the itemization, but still more than enough there to try to get him ahead or at least protect him in the laning phase.
Yeah, and we do see Corki opting for the Manamune first item. This has become more popular over the last 4 or so patches, as we see here, might be looking for a gank top side. And a gank bot side may be coming from Bandito. Chains of Corruption lands, able to get the second rune as the Nautilus gets the hook. There goes Pullhammer's Dragon Mooncake. Melts to the damage. Slash div gets a kill on a Drippix. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map is Devo Web picks up 2 for himself in the bottom lane. 2 for 1 across the map. Off the ganks with it will be a Rift Herald going over to Hard Hat Zone Yellow.
That it is. They make the rotation and the play on the opposite side of the map for both teams. So you see the initial play coming top with a little bit of vision from Drippix and that Tribe Rush. And instead of trying to take too much time, head to the top side to defend against anything, instead they're going to put those resources bottom lane. You get 2 kills, 1 for Frosty, 1 for Devo. You get a couple of plates here, and yes, the Rift Herald is going to get traded over. But at the moment, I don't see a great place for that to work if you don't find a fantastic ganking route. As you said, the Corki's wave clear is good enough to at least match what the Victor is going to have even after the Hex Core upgrade. Volibear is doing perfectly fine in top lane, and they're winning bot lane at the moment, so they really have to hard press. They almost have to bring 3 or 4 members into a single fight here on the side of Hard Hat just to use this Rift Herald to get a full tower at worst, or at best. And I don't think they're going to get back everything that they just lost for that Rift Herald play.
Yeah, Devo Web has a completed Umbral Glaive, about 800 gold up at the moment at this 9-minute mark, as we see another engage happen on the bot side of the map. Dragon Mooncake just making his way out, as that was a trade, but Dragon spawning in 50 seconds. We'll see a bit more priority towards this bot side of the map.
Yeah, already with a completed Umbral Glaive, as you said, it helps with vision control and also really helps with the early damage because there's no armor sitting on, right now, Pullhammer, a little bit sitting on Dragon Mooncake because he has that Glacial Shroud. But for the most part, everyone else on their team does not have any armor, so that early lethality hasn't been countered quite yet. I do think it's important to get some here eventually, but for the moment, that lethality, or the Varus is going to be doing a fair amount of damage in a lot of these skirmishes.
Yeah, meanwhile, Drippix just having his way with Solico in the top lane. Solico opted for the Vamp Scepter going into the Blade of the Ruin King first item. I still think he probably should have gone for the Bramble Vest, but maybe he knows something we don't, as the first play of the game actually goes over to Drippix on the top lane.
I see maybe the thought that the extended fight will go the way of Set if he takes out the trade, but as I said before, Set's real calling card here is the ability to take burst trades into the likes of Volibear and without pressing attack.
Oh, here comes the Victor ult on to the Nautilus. Frosty gonna pop the stopwatch as Wireless does a lot of damage on Fury. Meanwhile, Solar Flare gets on a Bandito, double weapons on killing spree as Fury is able to pick up the kill onto the enemy support, but he will end up getting taken down very low by his Wireless. He picks up another kill for himself, but he almost dies. Double Web now trading out with Dragon Mooncake, should be able to kite out and take the kill away. Slashdiv, meanwhile, gets another kill on a Bandito. It's a 3 for 2 in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Tripix in very low to Soloco right now. A Facebreaker Haymaker will do him in. It looks like he has just a bit of movement speed to get out of that one. Will be an overall 3 for 2 in that bottom lane. Dragon not taken yet.
Priority for that bottom river contested right there from both sides. Once again, the bottom lane coming in for the side of Wulfpack Empire is absolutely dominating. Diva Web finds something. Even more importantly, somehow Violus, before the Mune is even completed, way before any sort of power spike, is somehow able to find the trade on the Fur. Almost got it back.
No! If there was a Bramble, Dripix was dead there.
It's really tight. Yeah, the W just denying that heal and then also having the armor. It would be so efficient to have that right now. Or even execution or just something Ninja Tab by some sort of damage reduction for this Volibear who has pretty much nothing at the moment would be perfect for Soloco. But again, he's prioritized towards that damage itself. Finally does get those Ninja Tab on this back that he's on right now, but
Midlanders TP into the fight. Soloco back's gonna TP as well. This will be a 5v3 as Volibear is nowhere nearby. It guarantees the Dragon going over 2 hard heads on yellow, so they will make sure that the Dragon count is even. Going into the Soul will be a Cloud Soul this game. Not the best Soul to see on either of these teams, I would say. Maybe helps out the Volibear a bit, or the set, but otherwise, you just are looking for the ultimate CDR off that Dragon.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough because, I mean, no one really uses the ultimates all that. I mean, obviously, they all have their uses. Both ultimates on top laners are relatively similar. You put your top laner into the opposition. Both junglers have okay ultimates. You able to put them in the back of the team as well and then engage ultimates in your supports. The Corki makes almost no use of that Cloud Soul pretty much at all. And the main Chains of Corruption will be at low cooldown also.
So Flare goes down into the Zenith Blade. Here comes Bandito, though. Pullhammer kiting out as Change of Corruption comes through. Dragon Mooncake taken down very low, but he flashes out of the fight. As Bandito gets a kill on a Dragon Mooncake. The Phelios pops the ultimate, but it is already down as Fuhrer pops the ulti onto the Varus. He goes down low as well. It'll be a 3 for 2 in the bot lane. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Drippets pops the ultimate onto Soloco. Double up gets killed on Fuhrer in the bot lane. Flash forward, under tower, gets a stun down, gets another 100 health, and he's taking up the charge shots into the showstopper. Soloco gets a solo kill, and it's a disaster for Wulfpack Empire.
Is not to mention the Rift Herald dropped on the bot side here means there's even more plates going over. They finally are able to break on the bottom side. It took them moving both Fur and Shadow down to be able to make this play happen, but they're able to force their way on bottom side with a couple of kills, and now a turret all exclusively going to the Aphelios and the Victor, another really big deal. And then on top side, you see again, Dripax dominating the short trades, but when Soloco is able to bait him underneath the tower, that's all it is. 3 turret shots, and you're going to lose pretty much any 1v1, especially against the set. Finally, a little bit of reprieve across the map for Hard Hat Yellow.
Yeah, and on top of that, Slashdiv now 3-0-3 on the Victor, has a completed Hex Core, starting to build towards that Lich Bane. And we were talking about this a little bit off the stream. This Victor pick, if he's able to get ahead early like he's doing right now, will be a problem for Wulfpack Empire going into this mid-game.
And I think we are now well past the point of the Victor becoming a problem due to the fact that Hex Core and Lich Bane are on the way. Sheen, at least, is already done. And I'm starting to wonder also, outside of, you can ult in with Volibear to try to get on top of him. You can ult in with Hecarim to get on top of him. But if you don't burst him out with one of those two and you have the damage afterwards to follow him, how do you really kill the Victor because of this phase rush, because of the defense you can have from the Q? I don't think that's easy, especially when you consider Leona, you consider Set, you consider Rek'Sai, all of these kind of like disengaged threats that you've got on your team. So at the moment, I'm really terrified of what the Victor is going to be capable of doing, given the fact that there's no real response to him on the other side.
Meanwhile, Zwilus and company setting around the Rift Herald that is spawning in 3 seconds. They do want to take this, but Fuhrer is around alongside Dragon Mooncake and Pullhammer. It is going to be started 4v3 at the moment. Victor making his way over. Set is around. Dragon Mooncake pops the Solar Flare, gets stunned up though by Frosty. Here comes a TP. Root lands on Frosty, chains of corruption, goes on to support as Hecarim dives into the backline, gets on a slash dip. He gets taken down. That's a shutdown going over to the Volibears. Wireless uses the ultimate to get on to the enemy top laner. He is still unable to get the kills. The Facebreaker comes back in. The Root lands. Solo goes down. Double kill. Furor now in a bit of trouble. Gets taken down by the Aphelios. Polehammer and Dragon Mooncake still alive. 3 for 3 around the Baron pit, but the shutdowns go over to Wulfpack Empire.
I think that goes much worse. My apologies coming in for Hard Hat Yellow, or my apologies, worse for Wulfpack Empire if they don't bring down Slash early on in this fight. You saw Dripex and Bandito both ulted immediately to get on top of the Victor, who has the majority of the damage on this team. And were it not for that fact, despite both of them ending up going down in the fight, you're able to get that damage threat out. There is no setup for the Victor, no gravity or gravity well coming in to stop a lot of the pressure that gets put down. If it weren't for that, as Wireless did do well, I think eventually in the course of the fight, because that's what Corki does. But again, if that Victor is alive, really terrifying stuff around the Rift Herald. Instead, they're both denied on both sides, and they're able to kind of handshake the fight in the end.
Oh. Well, Dripex is taken down very low. Gonna go ahead and W, stay alive for the time being, but Slash Div has a lot of damage, despite not having Lurch Bane completely yet, so still a threat, even up against Dripex at the moment.
Slash, you saw just the kind of damage you can put out to the likes of the Volibear, who went Black Cleaver, first item, or over anything else. And without a lot of magic resist at this point, is a little bit difficult to fight into the Victor. Actually, the Sheen also started, which means this could be the Iceborne look, potentially. I don't know if he wants to go into and double dip into the likes of the Phage passive with Trinity Force and Black Cleaver. But certainly, either way, you're not getting that magic resist early on unless you just completely change itemization. So I don't think Slash has any problems just continuing to poke away at the bear for at least a little while in the side lanes.
Yeah, and we do see the Dragon getting started, both teams posturing around it. Looks to be a 5v5. But you look at the Baron take, Polehammer definitely has much better Baron take than Devoweb at the moment, but neither team wants to really go in at the moment.
Yeah, they're kind of just posturing a little bit back and forth between the two. I think both have engage that you have to be careful about. Dragon Mooncake, I think, needs to pull off the reins a little bit with the depth he engages. Look where he's at right now.
Oh, here comes the engage from the Volibear. Gets into the backline as Change Corruption gets popped. The American goes over to the blue side as they get the Steel Soul Code. Gets taken out first. Now, diving back in with the Hecarim ultimate. Gets onto 2. Dragon Mooncake, the next one to fall is Slash Dip. Is half health. Fear pops the ulti. Gets the kill on the Polehammer, but he will fall as Slash Dip does a lot of damage. So he's able to get the kill onto the enemy support. Fear still goes down to the rocket and will be a 4 for 3. And the Dragon going over to Wulfpack Empire.
So far, it has really been Wulfpack Empire finding the success of pushing Victor out of the fight immediately. That time, it was only Dripex getting into the backline, being able to push Victor out the backside of the fight, where those E's, those Qs, you can't connect. You need more space here for the Victor to work into these team fights, because Polehammer doesn't quite have the damage to be able to carry them on his own. So right there, you see Xviolus and Devoweb, despite some of the heroics coming in from Furor, we're not basically touched at all during the course of that fight, and you can't take the 1v2 yet as the Victor without the strength that you've got in the rest of your team. So they gate the Dragon here on the side of Wulfpack Empire, and their carries continue to do well in fights since there's no one there to really put pressure on them.
Yeah, Solico, meanwhile, completes the Blade of the Rune King. I will expect the, not the Black Cleaver, excuse me, the Death Stance to come out from Solico as well. So should be very nice for the split push, as we see Slash Dev actually the answer to Dripex in the side lanes here. Might be looking for a knock-up on a Dripex. He's taken out low. The second proc of the E comes in before the volley W. Oh, man.
Yeah, you see why you need some of the magic resist coming in here rather quickly, because, again, it looks like the Iceborne is going to be the next itemization choice for Dripex, and yes, that does well at denying the damage from Fear, Solico, and Polehammer, but your response right now should be to magic resist. You're way too late on this, and so now through at least another 5-10 minutes of this game without MR at all on your body, you're going to get destroyed by Slash Div. In fact, I actually want to do a quick magic resist check on that whole team, and the only member with any is Nautilus right now. Nautilus is not the person you want to have the MR, because that's not who's doing damage, that's not who's getting hit by the Victor. It's everybody else that needs at least a little bit of it. They're going to be very delayed in their handling of the magic damage coming out from Victor. And yes, Polehammer's going to be putting a little bit of the dirt. Fear is going to fall off a little bit faster with the armor builds, but this Victor is the terrifying threat at the moment.
Yeah, and Devoweb should be getting I forgot the name of the item. It's what Rexa has right now. The Edge of Night. Yeah. should be getting an Edge of Night. If he doesn't, I'll be sad. But, you know, you see the one Null Magic Mantle on Drippix, he has to complete Iceborne for slot efficiencies, unless he gets rid of the Doran Shield. However, I do want to see a Spirit Visage come out on him, and as soon as possible.
It's still possible also that Drippix is going to sit on the machine, which already has an intrinsic power spike with that passive, and you go into what will be Death Stance eventually, but what for this moment could be Aegis of the Legion, or as you said, he could continue to build that. I think with the weird armor, the cloth armor in that, I'm going to lean towards Aegis of the Legion into Death Stance, which is pretty typical for something like the Volibear to build no matter what build you're doing, just because of how good the item is at giving you additional defensive stats, additional healing in fights, things of that sort. And as you said, after that, Spirit Visage would be a great choice. But he's put himself so far on the back foot with the Sheen, he needs a fair amount of gold influx before that really comes to light.
Yeah, Muramana completed from Zweilous 2. That just got finished stacking as he completed the Trinity Force, now building in towards the Infinity Edge. As we see, Slash Div just going full damage, building the Death Cap third item here on the Victor. I like to see this, especially when you're 6-1 and 6, and as huge as Slash Div is in these fights, you need to be able to burst people down. And we already see Drippix just completely pivoting and getting the Spectre's Kel towards the Spirit Visage already, and just ignoring his armor entirely.
Yeah, that's a little bit interesting. I like the choice of...
Oh, flash forward, knockup. Devil Web should be able to get out of this. Pops Chains Corruption, but the Rek'Sai ultimate's already there. Führer gets a nice solo kill in the mid lane.
It finds him in a really unique position there. I'm not sure how Führer ended up getting on top of him. It was the flash up in the tunnel that got to him. But again, you had at least a little bit of vision on him coming into this fight. If your Debo Web must have just not had the reflexes or not thought that he needed to burn flash ultimate sooner than he did, anything like that to stop the Rek'Sai. So on the backline, now stun up as well.
Dragon Moon Cake, it's a nice stun down as Hecarim goes into the backline, able to get on Slash Tip, and here comes the set ultimate, and Dragon Moon Cake gets a kill into Bandito, 3-4-2. Now, in this mid lane, including Debo Web, and nice plays coming out from Hard Hat Zone Yellow as the Dragon spawns in about 25 seconds.
And right now, I mean, Polehammer was the target of affection there, but again, you're doing nothing to the likes of Führer, who actually has a fair amount of damage.
Oh, Polehammer though, got the special delivery. Zweilous says, I have you on vision. I got this. You know, Solico, trading out with Drippix at the moment.
And again, at the moment, I think the lane setup here, at least for Solico, is kind of rough because you can't really take a fight against either the Volibear or the likes of the Corki in a side lane, and neither one of them is typically preferable. And even better, they're actually going for their second dragon of the game right now, so they should be looking for that. I don't think the steal is going to come out because Hecarim's a little ways out.
Oh, never mind!
I take it back. Debo Web steals it with a Q. Well done, Debo Web. Yeah. So that is a little bit of hero play, which is really nice to see, because obviously you get your second Cloud Drake. We talked about Cloud Soul not being the most effective Cloud Drake, really not mattering that much, especially for the likes of the Corki, who doesn't really use the missiles. But that does give them the option to force a fight around the next Drake if they really want to deny it here for the side of Hard Hat, or my apologies, for the side of Hard Hat Yellow. Because if they don't want to give away the Cloud Soul, they're going to have to fight. So at minimum, a decision here for the likes of Wulfpack Empire that they can play around with in terms of macro game.
Interestingly, though, Drippix appears to be completing his Iceborne Gauntlet, but also picks up another Null Magic Mantle, so maybe going for the Adaptive Helm here instead of the Spirit Visage. What do you make of that?
So this is like the junk drawer type building style where you build the only build that it works on right now is like the Omnistone Twisted Fate, which is really cool to see. But Drippix, you're not really getting the efficiency out of these items. Again, Sheen on its own isn't bad. I would have loved it if you went Sheen directly into Spirit Visage, or if you went directly into Abyssal Mask, whatever you want it to be. But in this case, you've got so many different items right now, you just gotta finish an item.
Solico having a nice time up against Drippix, though. Gets a nice ultimate down as Drippix pops his ult himself, flashes out, but he still gets caught by the true damage of the Haymaker. And Solico wins the fight pretty handily.
You see, the problem with building so many different items and having
Oh,
these
flash forward into the face Spectre! That should be enough for Drippix! Haymaker does it, and Solico picks up the solo kill!
That's why you don't junk drawer right now. I mean, you had, before that kill coming through, about a 500, 600 gold lead, something like that.
Flash forward, flash to the posse ultimate. Let's get a flash, but here comes the Rek'Sai ulti. If you're against the shutdown, they're not giving you time to talk.
They are, man. I mean, in fairness, basically the Corki disappeared. One EQ coming out from Slash Div, and that's 75% of his health, and it was just an ultimate coming through from Führer. And that's the fear. There's no magic resist coming through from the team. Drippix has to junk drawer. because the Victor is so terrifying, but that's cost him now the ability to fight in the side lane up against Soloco, who now has 2 completed items, matching pretty much what Driftex has in terms of the 1v1 strike. Really, really impressive stuff. They gotta rely on a steal potential.
Oh, here comes Bandito. Look at the steal. That's from the back line. Here comes this Chains of Corruption slash dip. Gets the Rampage, gets the kill. They get 2, get 3. TP coming in from Dripix now as the Quirky respawns in 8 seconds. And that's going to be Baron going over to the side of Hardhead's on yellow. And this is very, very scary right now for Wulfpack Empire.
Yeah, now you've got a 3-item Rek'Sai, you've got a 3-item Victor, which is humongous, as well as a stopwatch sitting on him. Not to mention the Aphelios is continuing to pick up gold, slowly accruing a bit more of those items that can be helpful to getting towards those next few item spikes. And now in fights, you have to be a little afraid of him. And even worse, the 5,000 gold lead, all this itemization, it propagates itself on the fact that there are 3 Cloud Drakes, or there's 3 Drakes sitting on the side of Wulfpack Empire, and now they have to choose, do we make a play for the Dragon and try to get that objective for ourselves so we have some strength, or do we have to give that up because of the fact that we're down so much gold?
We'll see what they decide to do. Actually, Dripix going for the Aegis now after the Spectre's Cowl?
The Aegis, I have no clue what this man is doing anymore. Like, I'm completely lost. He could have completed his Spirit Visage and also completed the Iceborne by now if he weren't messing around with just these random item spikes. And I'm a little curious as to what is happening here. I guess my thought process now is like, you wanted immediate magic, you're wanting these immediate stats for fights, but it's not helping you in the long term. So yes, you've got 10 item from you've got 10 armor, 15 armor from a cloth armor, you've got 25 magic resist from a null magic mantle. That's great, but it doesn't do you any good if you're just having those items sit in your inventory for a while trying to break the itemization breakpoints.
Yeah, this isn't Dota. Junk Drawer isn't the optimal build style in League. Speaking of, been playing a lot of Dota recently. It's a fun game. But we're playing League of Legends right now.
That's right. Actually, it reminds me, back in the day when Aphelios came out, I was hoping he'd be like Invoker, because I'm like an Invoker player when I played Dota 2. And I really wanted that to be the case, and then it just turned out that that wasn't the case.
I'm a bristleback spammer, so
That's
very
fair.
different play styles.
Very different play styles. Around the map. Oh god, are we gonna see more to 1v1? I feel like I feel like no one's winning this 1v1 matchup in the top lane.
Well, here comes Bandito, so Solico should go down. Showstopper does buy him some time into the Haymaker, does a bit of damage, but the W already comes out, and the shutdown will come out for Dripix. Meanwhile, the mid lane turret gets taken down, but the Chain of Corruption already comes out from the... That Q almost yeeted Pullhammer.
That it did. Not to mention, I mean, Slash Dave somehow snuck in a kill, and then he lost.
And ulting back in onto the Victor, deletes some. Dragon Moon came, looking for the counter, engage Pullhammer. It would have got the kill with the Moonlight Vigil.
All right. A little bit of trading back and forth. I thought potentially the push-up was going to be there, but as you said, because of the fact that Pullhammer had taken so much damage, they weren't able to step directly into this possibility of sieging on mid-tower once the Heckerman moved to the bottom side to win that 1v1 for Grifex. And because of that, they're in some weird situations. Now, there is no smite on this team. Emperor is up, so they should be able to take this, barring another steal from Debo Web. They're pulling it out this time. They learned their lesson from last time, at least a little bit. They actually do it now.
Looking for the ultimate, able to get it onto the Aphelios. Xylos will be able to get the kill. Fiora now flashing up the wall, takes a blast cone. Will be a dragon for a support, I think. Yeah.
I think all things said and done, that's the trade. Which, actually, to be 100% honest, I feel like Wulfpack Empire could have been so much harder punished off the back of that, because the massive deficit you're at with Slash having so much gold, the fact that they were able to bring him down in that mid lane engagement as well as Soloco and bring it to only 3 people and give up the Cloud Soul for or Cloud Drake, my apologies, for basically nothing, is almost beneficial for their team. They were able to stop a lot of the Baron push coming through. Yeah, you use mid inner, you ended up losing top inner, all things said and done. You still have an outer tower to work with. You still are on Cloud Soul, at least for one more. You can give up another dragon if you absolutely need to. And they're finding at least some of the picks they need to continue. Not to mention this Corki is looking massive at the moment.
Yeah, 6-1 and 4 has a completed Infinity Edge, has a Zeal, so should be building towards Rapid Fire Cannon. That said, something we haven't really talked about this game, even though he's on 3 items and he's starting to do the damage hitting, his Power Spike is Pullhammer, now sitting on 3 crit items, going to be building into his 4th, probably looking for... I'm not sure actually which crit item he builds next.
You might just not build one. At this point, you might just
go Bloodthirster.
Yeah, Bloodthirster, Death Stance, Guardian Angel, something along those lines to make sure that you have a little bit more sustainability in these fights. That tends to be typical. In fact, I've seen some actually completely bypass second Zeal item and go directly to Bloodthirster or into the Death Stance, especially the Death Stance in its heyday. Obviously, that's nerfed to some extent, but I still see it fairly often, and especially the Zeal item coming into the 4th position. With 3, I have to expect the sustain items coming next.
Yeah, and he already has the Phantom Dancer, right? So help to deal with that dive from the Hecarim, the Volibear. Volibear does complete the Adaptive Helm, not my favorite item on Volley. I feel like Spirit Visage, you get more for your money, unless you're up against the likes of a Cassiopeia. Does now have Bramble Vest as well, so should be building into the completed Thornmail to try to deal with the Aphelios, but otherwise, this is very interesting itemization. Otherwise, standard itemization across the board from both these teams. We see the completed Xenu's Hourglass on the Victor, so 1 item from being 6 slotted.
Yeah, the defense is nice there for Slash, just to make sure he doesn't get tapped out by something like the Hecarim diving in or Debo finding just a really good arrow on him. We're going to see more iterations of this top lane matchup, and right now Dripx, despite being relatively even in gold, is actually an entire item ahead to the efficiency of building things like Black Cleaver, things like Iceborne and stuff like that, where you're basically at, like I said, it's about a half an item ahead of where you're going to be at for Soloco in terms of the build, despite being at relatively the same gold.
Yeah, a little bit of a lull in the game right now as Dragon spawning in 205 and neither team really posturing towards the Baron at the moment. Both teams looking for a pick, most likely.
Yeah, the lane state here, actually, for the side of Hard Hat isn't terrible because their top lane is so ridiculously pushed that they should be capturing like river priority, especially since you knew that Volibear was bot side. All you've really got in terms of engage is the Hecarim, so they need to push into the river with Furor and with their Victor and try to push out a lot of the vision that they've got. So they're walking down to bottom side here. I'm very, very concerned with why they would be doing this other than to capture vision for the Dragon eventually, but they're still a minute and a half out from that. The Baron is the pressing issue at the moment.
Yeah, and Flash on both these top laners to really get nothing. Slash Div looking for even more. They're just giving up this Baron.
What? Why are you down there? I guess TP is going to come in. They're going to try to contest it, but they're matching the TP actually with Dripix alone. They're going to be able to take this.
I guess they needed the kit. I don't know if he's going to be able to steal this one. Puts the ultimate down as it goes over to the blue side. Here comes the ultimate from the volley. And Xylas with his punch delivery, but it goes down anyway. Polehammer goes on a killing spree as they try to get more damage down. Fury goes on to the Nautilus. It's a disaster. Mooncake going to go down super low, but he stays alive right now. Gets the stun from the Zenith Blade as the Moonlight Vigil misses. Now the ultimate from the Fuhrer gets onto the enemy AD carry. Double kill for Slash Div, and it's a 3 for 4. Baron still goes over to Wulfpack Empire, but they only get it onto 1.
I suppose that it's a really nice fight afterwards. I don't know exactly how that ended up playing out that way because their carries were also there first. Slash Div was the first one to that fight alongside Soloco, who teleported in, and even Polehammer was pretty far up. It was actually Fur and Dragon Moon who were the last ones to that fight, so somehow keeping their backline alive in the front just because of the fact that they were trying to peel away from Baron on the side of Wulfpack Empire. I don't know what the macro decision-making was there, but somehow they were able to god out that fight, and they end up getting only the Baron here for Wulfpack Empire on Dripx, which is their split push, has been doing better in the side lane after that one loss of the kind of 1v1 against Soloco, but still, that they're going to be competing for the Dragon now. That's going to be lost, so Dragon Soul will be a point of contention here. They're looking back and forth, but I don't think they're going to get it.
If he's stumbling channel, Volibear goes into the pit, gets the ultimate down onto Slash Div, but he's taken down very low by the Victor, and Slash Div just goes on a killing spree there. So soul point for both these teams coming up in 5 minutes. And we take a look to see Aphelios' build path. Going to go for the Last Whisper here alongside the Executioner's Calling for the Mortal Reminder. Early Potion, though, or early Elixir actually taken by Slash Div before building the second Stopwatch because he hasn't used that item yet.
I suppose the idea behind that is just that you need immediate power in the game somehow, whether it's around for Baron or around for something else. And so having the immediate power in spending 600 gold is worth the 600 gold, because otherwise your inventory is just sitting there with either wards or a second stopwatch, as you see in this particular case, which gives you no combat stats. So instead, if you're going to buy those, you go for the potion and you wait a little bit longer, because you're not really pressed for gold at the moment. If you're the Victor, you're going to get to that item eventually. It's just about how long it's going to take. So for the immediate strength, you go into the vial. And now they're going to look to siege up on tower. And currently, the Varus went to bot side alongside the Nautilus, so there is a bit of siege potential here. Especially with the Victor being as powerful as he is, he can zone members away from entering from the side.
Here comes Bandito, though. First stopwatch gets popped right back into the ultimate from everybody. Holy crap, Solico goes back into the backline, gets a lot of damage, and Slash Div goes on a rampage, pops the Haymaker onto Frosty, gets taken out to 400 health, takes up the tower, but he will stay alive for the time being. 2-4-0, and they're able to go onto this mid lane tower, looking for the inhib. The Q from Devweb does a bit of damage, but not as much. He's fallen off already, and Slash Div just here to clear the waves.
Really impressive double stopwatch from Slash Div. So the immediate engagement was from Dripex and Bandito was thwarted by the initial one, and then afterwards they knew that he was going to come out of that, so he pops the second one to make sure that they're going to get their hands off of the Victor to start with here. And most importantly, Dripex and Bandito, they can engage so heavily into this composition once the Victor was in Zonias, they ended up giving their lives. So now there's no real front line here. Nautilus can try to play that role, but you just get popped by Polehammer and Slash at this point, and so there is no protection anymore for Xylas and Devweb. They have to step off the tower. They are able to push off, thankfully, because of their poke damage away from the inhibitor, but Hard Hat Yellow still has definitive control of the game, and you see with that Zonias just how amazingly kind of a ruining that it is against Dripex and Bandito's composition, or their engagement if he places it at the right time.
Yeah, and Solico had a very nice ultimate in that fight as well. Going in with the counter engage, picks up Dripex, knocks him into the entirety of Wulfpack Empire, and really sets up for the Aphelios as well to just do the damage alongside Slash Div. And we're now at this point where it's very scary for Wulfpack Empire. They are on death's door right now if they can't find a way back into the game.
Yeah, going to be able to grab up the Banshees. They also double itemization here to protect the Victor against the rest of the team. The MR is nice into the Corki just because of how much consistent damage he does. And again, the Banshee's Veil is really nice because if Bandito or Dripex try to get into that one, or if, say, the Chains of Corruption, the Q from Nautilus, anything try to hit him, he gets at least one do-over before the Zonias has to be burnt to make sure that he doesn't just get caught out with some spare random ability and has to burn it outside of a fight. Really, really good decision there. Not to mention, he probably has enough gold to continue running pots as well. So the strength of the Victor is astronomical at the moment if they're able to find him. Xylas is caught out really hard. Oh,
that was just really well executed. Ways to have triggered discipline as he flashes in, gets the knock up here. Bandito going under the wall as Rek'Sai pops the ultimate onto Frosty. Moonlight Vigil hits his Spear, goes unstoppable. He will end up getting taken down by the Hecarim, though. Dragon Moon Cake, though, to go in with the Zenith Blade. Devweb forced to flash out of that one as Divix goes down to just an auto from Slash Div. 3 for 1. They take the inhib.
I don't think there's enough wave clear here. I think this might just end up being the game. The Victor is so ridiculously strong.
Last
you see right
here, auto! Slash Div's dominating as Bandito tries to find a way down, but he knows it's all too little too late. Ace comes out from Solico, and Hard Hat Zone Yellow go up 1-0 in the series.
All too easy. The Victor got away with murder in the earlier stages of the game, picking up plays, picking up fights, and because obviously there was some advantage from Wulfpack Empire on the bottom side that they were able to press, but the Victor, or my apologies, the Varus, when you're playing into the lethality style, when you're playing the armor penetration type Varus, later in the game you lose a fair amount of sustainability in terms of your damage for fights, and we saw Devweb hit a wall for the most part. That Slash Div basically would never have a possibility of hitting. You saw him just capping people left and right in the late game, and Xylas never had that damage despite being on 5 items, almost the 6 item mark himself. So really, really impressive stuff. Using this Victor as such a power point, having for Polehammer, Solico do the kind of the supplementary damage, but playing around that in such an impressive way in game number 1 here.
Yeah, and on top of that, right, we look at the post-game damage, 39,000 damage from this Victor this game. Just really well played from Slash Div in particular, but Führer, I think, also does deserve a shout-out as well. Throughout the mid-game, really started a lot of these engagements and was able to find a lot of these weird picks onto Xylas and Devweb. So that is worth pointing out as well. Who do you have pegged for MVP of this first game?
That's a tough one. I know Slashiv played really, really well. Don't get me wrong about that, but I actually have to give it to Fur. I think his ability to be around the map, be a constant pressure in fights, be a front line for a team, despite not having the most tankiness on the likes of the Rek'Sai, I think he was really impressive in his own right. Look at that jungle fight, 234 jungle rhyme, somehow beating out a Hecarim, which is not easy to do as a Rek'Sai. You had all of the gold that he had gotten. He had a slightly higher kill participation against Slashiv, and while Slashiv did a lot of the damage, I think Fur's early game pressure was really what ended up winning the day here.
Yeah, all that being said, though, we're going to take it to a quick break as we get ready to go for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of the Upsurge Junior League playoffs.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Gave you too much, now I'm swallowed. Now I'm the fool while you're breaking rules. Dangerous path that I follow. Oh, go on, just do what you do.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upsurge Junior League. My name is Fennec. Joining me on the desk today is Rebel Fox, and we're getting ready to go with game number 2 of Hard Hat Zone Yellow versus Wulfpack Empire. How are we feeling going into the second game?
I think Wulfpack Empire needs a bath after what I saw from last game. And I'll explain exactly what I mean by that in the fact that there's so much cleaning that has to be done. First off, there was some macro decision making. That was more so on hard hats, but even themselves, they had a little bit of issue controlling the map and forcing things that weren't there. So there's that. The build path also from Dripix. Everybody in that knows, obviously, there are real big problems from the Volibear that could have been a massive point of strength that got ruined to some extent because of the itemization choices. And then even compositionally, I think there's a little bit of cleaning that could be done. Again, with the Varus and Corki, if you go on hit Varus, you have later game scaling. If you're going for that lethality Corki, you have to press your advantage a lot better across the map in the early game. So again, that comes back to a little bit of macro. So I think cleaning across the board here for Wulfpack Empire could be within the cards. Not to say that it was a perfect game from Hard Hat Yellow, but they aren't the ones that took the loss in game one.
Yeah, and Hard Hat Zone Yellow, right? Once again, come off a win last week, whereas Wulfpack Empire was knocked down from the upper bracket. So that may be playing in as well a little bit with the mental. I do think it's probably worth targeting a ban towards that Victor this particular game or towards the Rek'Sai, one of the two. As we get into these picks and bans, Hard Hat Zone Yellow, first ban going to be the Ezreal. So similar bans to the first game, as that was their third ban. Last game, Beam got away by Wulfpack Empire.
Not shocking to see. Yeah. Okay, they go back to the Graves as well, which is something interesting because that can be blind picked for first pick here for the side of Hard Hat Zone if they've got the rest of the team behind it that is capable of playing against it. I'm curious if there are changes, as you said, whether or not it is Wulfpack, my apologies, going for the Victor ban. And it's not. It's actually the exact same set of bans we saw in game number one, just in slightly different positions.
Yeah, Hard Hat Zone has the ability to first pick here. I almost want to see them go for that Victor and just kind of give them the opportunity, maybe. But it will be the Rek'Sai first pick. Just not gonna get banned away, not gonna get picked away. Very good pick for them in the last game, so no surprise here as they get counter pick for the bot lane.
Yeah, now Hard Hat Zone, I think also, Fura played so well on the Rek'Sai that I'm not shocked to see them go back to priority on that one, even with the likes of the Victor up, because I think there's responses to Victor, and while yes, there are responses to Rek'Sai, there's nothing that really match exactly what it can do in terms of early game pressure. Now, Wulfpack, they go to the Aphelios Thresh. In the last game, they were the ones playing against Aphelios, and they had the Hook Champion as well, and this is I think, a stronger setup right now with the Aphelios is to have Thresh for the repositioning on the Lantern.
Yeah, and on top of that, right, Frosty has played that quite a bit this season. Nautilus being hovered by Hard Hat Zone, I don't like it into the Thresh. I feel like a Morgana or a Leona is better, but they opt to pick that one up anyway. I wonder what they'll pick up for ADC here.
Misfortune.
Dare I say the Vel'Koz?
Vel'Koz and Misfortune, I think, would both work. You do have AD supplementation, and you said the Vel'Koz be either team fighter, and you called it perfectly. Fantastic job on your part. But yeah, this is something he's gone back to time and time again. Works really well with the Nautilus and can really abuse Thresh and Aphelios in the laning phase.
Yeah, Olaf being picked up by Wulfpack Empire, so going for a bit more aggressive of a jungler than the Hecarim, has a much faster first clear, and can get to those ganks way quicker.
Not to mention, Olaf has the capability of dueling Rek'Sai in the jungle. I don't think Hecarim has that capability unless you get just a pure engagement out of a lapse of vision onto Rek'Sai. But in this case, if Olaf and Rek'Sai path across one another happens to be over a Rift Scuddler, over a Dragon, something like that, Rek'Sai into Olaf isn't bad, but Olaf can take that fight depending on his health bar, depending on how much lifesteal he has, things of that sort, as opposed to Hecarim, who, if in that situation, you basically have to run, or do you have to turn for a bad fight, or you need wave priority or something. Olaf, far more contestable a pick in the 1v1 against the Rek'Sai.
Set and kill being picked up by Wulfpack Empire, so they don't ban the Victor. Not sure if Hard Hat Zone will pick that one up with this comp. I think they already have quite a bit of AP damage with the Vel'Koz, and we know that that Slashdiv has played the likes of the Kiana and the Hybrid TF as well. Poppy being picked up, though, for Wulfpack Empire. This is a comfort pick for Dripix. He's played a lot of this season.
Poppy is, in my mind, a really good pick because, as you said, if the Kiana happens to come through, if the Rek'Sai happens to come through, the Nautilus all get denied with that steadfast presence coming in from the Poppy to make sure that you can deny a fair amount to that. Not to mention the ultimate can be used on the Vel'Koz if he begins channeling it in an improper position.
Yeah, and we see... Please. Yes!
Wow. Okay.
I don't think it's the right pick here, but as an Anivia 1 trick, thank you.
Okay.
And GP being picked up in the top lane.
I actually am in love with this draft right now. The amount of poke, the amount of zone control you've got with Anivia and Vel'Koz and Gangplank is unreal. And as you said you're an Anivia round pick, so I'll give you the chance to analyze the pick on itself. But even into the likes of Olaf, Poppy, and Aphelios, who basically have to run at you for the most part, that wall is going to be humongous to stop them in their tracks.
Yeah, Syndra being picked up by Wulfpack Empire. This is why I don't like Anivia as a blue side pick all that much. She's very easily counterpicked by the likes of a Syndra, by the likes of Vel'Koz, but obviously that's been taken off the map. So this lane phase not going to be very easy for Slashdiv, but if he's able to pull it off, their team fight mid to late game is insane. They have Anivia and Gangplank, both of whom are going to do consistent damage in these team fights. Alongside the Vel'Koz to kind of get them through that early to mid game, and still has the opportunity to do true damage to the likes of the Olaf, to the likes of the Poppy in these fights. So I'll be interested to see how well this lane goes for Slashdiv. Anivia doesn't really have any winning matchups, is what I always say. So if he's able to go even in lane, able to get to that 2 items with the Rod of Ages and Archangel Staff and start building towards that Liandry's Torment, that's when you really are looking for these fights from the side of Hard Hat Zone yellow. Meanwhile, Wulfpack Empire, much more straightforward comp than last game, I would say.
Yes. My problem at the moment with Wulfpack Empire is, again, as I said before, they're kind of a run-at-you, a death ball composition. Olaf doesn't have hard engage. Poppy doesn't have a really hard engage outside of just, like, running in and dashing or throwing the ultimate something. Syndra can find stuns from a decent distance. Thresh can find hooks. But there's no definitive go button on the team. They have to look or fish for something like that. And into the likes of Anivia and Vel'Koz and such, it's going to be difficult. So here's how I think Wulfpack need to play this game. Syndra doesn't do bad into Anivia because of the spacing, lower cooldowns, better wave clear, things of that sort. But into Anivia, even if you shut it down, the wall's going to be there. The ult's going to be there. All that utility that prevents this team fight from doing well is still going to be there on Anivia, whether you put it in the dirt or not. If my opinion, the Syndra needs to take the advantage you've got with Olaf and get onto the map, get into the river, get dragons, Rift Heralds, put pressure on top lane, put pressure in bot lane, because at the moment, Hard Hat Zone, Gangplank into Poppy is not a losing matchup for Gangplank. And then the Vel'Koz Rek'Sai, or Vel'Koz Nautilus, my apologies, is good into the Aphelios Thresh. You need to supplant those lanes with additional pressure to make sure you don't just get bullied off by the members who are going to be doing the heavy damage in the late game and not putting too much pressure on the Anivia, who's going to have the value no matter what.
Yeah, Xylas really needs to play this strong side mid very well. Meanwhile, Hard Hat Zone, they have a strong side bot lane with the Vel'Koz and the Nautilus. Rek'Sai, though, will be farming a little bit longer than the Olaf going into this first couple of ganks. So Syndra can grab the early wave priority, especially before Anivia hits level 6, able to run with the Olaf, start pressuring that bottom side of the map. I think that's where they're going to be able to get their early advantage if they can find one.
Yeah, I think there's moments here where, Gangplank, it doesn't do bad into Poppy, and Anivia it does okay, and they're not great, obviously. It's a losing matchup by far. But the most important thing is neither one of them should be able to just purely wave clear and roam into the river. The Vel'Koz Nautilus can. So at the moment, Xylas and Bandito need to control both river sides to make sure that there is no play that can come through. Because Führer is basically operating on his own at the moment, given the fact that there's no real wave priority outside of bot lane to work with in any of these particular champions. So Xylas and Bandito are always there. You've got an outnumber no matter the situation inside of the jungle, and that's why you play the early game. You don't have the best team fighting composition in terms of engage. If you get to late game, Syndra and Aphelios and Poppy can do some really good work, but you need to get them there. The way you get them there is by playing more aggressive early without really a definitively winning composition and taking neutral objectives off the board.
Yeah, and this is really going to lie on Bandito and Xylas. I know we've said this like 3 times already, but you need to get this Olaf and Syndra off the ground. Poppy does very well into the Nautilus and the Rek'Sai, as we said, can enable these team fights, but you need to be able to have a way to deal with this Rek'Sai going into the mid game beyond just keeping her out of the fights. And you need to be able to deal with the Vel'Koz as well. Syndra is your way to deal with the Vel'Koz, as is the Olaf, able to pop the Ragnarok, stay away from the CC, and you need to find a way to weave CC in through those Anivia walls. That said, any final thoughts on win conditions for both of these teams? We've already talked about Wulfpack's win condition. So what do you make of Hard Hat Zone?
I think Hard Hat has an exceptional composition for this game. I love the Anivia. I think it works really well even into the likes of Cinder for this one because of the difficulty they have actually getting on top of Anivia and Wellcause. And it works almost like a supportive mid laner in this case that does a ridiculous amount of damage. And so I think the Anivia is going to be important to watch throughout the game in the laning phase. And in the late stages, if you get there, I really do think Hard Hat has a very superior composition to work with.
Yeah, once again, Anivia GP scaling just outscales literally everything on the side of Wulfpack Empire. But before we get into the game, a quick word from our sponsor. This time it is Kono Keyboard. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, it all starts with your peripherals. From keyboards to keycaps, mice, and more, our friends at Kono have got you covered. Kono works with the world's best designers, inventors, and makers to bring you some of the best gaming peripherals around. Kono have been huge supporters of us here at Upsurge and have made generous contributions to our prize pools. If you need to find a new keyboard, check out the Hexgear's X-Tech 1 RGB low-profile keyboard. If you use the discount code UpsurgeGG, you will get 7% off your first order. For more information, check out kono.store and see what they have to offer. That's KONO.store. Kono, discover amazing products. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upsurge Junior League Week 2 lower bracket matchup between Hard Hat Zone Yellow and Wulfpack Empire. My name is Fennec. Joining me on the desk today is Rebel Fox, and we're getting ready to go in game number 2 of this best of 5, or best of 3. Excuse me.
Oh my goodness. So I've seen this on occasion where the invade comes in and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have actually never in my entire time casting seen an exact reflection of this between both sides. I've seen both of them invade on both sides, but I've never seen the double tri-brush invade, and that is a thing of beauty to watch. Neither team has any clue where the other one is going to be.
Slash div opts for the Black Frost Anivia skin, so he is tryharding. Not the best Anivia skin, but it is the tryhard one.
I'm all about paper. The papercraft Anivia looks so good.
I swap between Papercraft and Festival Queen. I like Festival Queen's splash art a lot more, but Papercraft is oh so nice, especially with some of the chromas.
Now, okay, I need to get your opinion on this because you're an Anivia one trick and I am not, but I personally consider Anivia to have crystallize the wall is the best ability in the game, and I don't think I've ever met anybody that's debated me on that point. So I want to get your thoughts on that idea.
Oh, we'll see. Bandito pops an axe down, but he gets caught up with the hook. Gets some damage down. Bandito ignited up. Flay, though, disengages the fight. So Flash gets popped.
Interesting. Really. Okay.
Okay.
I'm lost in this because like they invade for red side and then they stick around there. So now not only is it that Hard Hat gets invade, like they get invaded and they get ward pressure on the red buff and the Raptor pit, so they're gonna have Bandito completely pegged. He's low health, so his clear is gonna be really good, but of course he has to be able to sure not to die to his blue buff. Okay, he uses the spike to make sure he doesn't drop too low. But this is a ton of damage put down onto Bandito. He's flashless, and they're going to be able to spot him out in the jungle as Führer plays Rek'Sai. If I were Führer, I would walk into that red side right now and not leave. I would take every camp out of his red side, and then there's nothing that the Olaf can do about it. There's absolutely nothing. Because at the moment, there's no pressure that Bandito exerts against a level 3 Rek'Sai once he'd be able to take a couple of those buffs.
Yeah, we'll see how the Rek'Sai decides to path here. Going to go up for the full clear on the bot side, but it starts with the Krugs. So has the option to go up towards that Olaf red side and contest up there. But to your question about Crystallize, I mean, I think it's probably the best zoning ability in the game. And the best team fight disruption in the game. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best ability overall. I'm partial to Frostbite. I think 100% AP scaling on a point-and-click ability is just broken. But there I go again with various things. We see the wall actually comes out a little bit late, as Wireless is able to make his way out of that gank from the Rek'Sai early. Early pressure already coming in from Führer, though, knowing that the Olaf has to spend a lot of time clearing.
Yeah, again, I would have loved more so for Führer, instead of trying against the likes of the Cinder, who has to disengage with E at level 3, instead to go for the invade against the Olaf, and now Bandito has a little bit of competition in terms of that bottom side river, because the pressure from Poppy and Cinder, they're roaming up to look for the play, potentially push Rek'Sai out.
Yeah, Frosty gonna fly. Gets hooked back in with the Nautilus knockup from the Vel'Koz. He's got 3 stacks. That's surge damage. Flashing back, not gonna get the hook. My map went in double there. 3 stacks of Vel'Koz passive at level 3. Oh no. Oh no.
Real terrifying. And not to mention, this is part of the reason why like Vel'Koz's support isn't bad into the likes of Thresh, because you punish the positioning really badly, especially if he drops there for a hook or for a flay or something. You know exactly where he's going to be for enough time to always hit the tectonic disruption. And especially when you're paired with Nautilus, another CC champion, it's all too easy to be able to punish the likes of the Thresh and the Aphelios when you get those combos off. So this is really a terrifying lane, not to mention when a little bit of AP and a little bit of especially mana get flooded into this Vel'Koz when you go for GLP or things like Twin Shadows. It's going to be really simple to try to set up your own plays and constantly push the wave out to have pressure on the bottom side river.
Yeah, interesting to note about runes, right? So we do see the Glacial Augment coming out from Polehammer, kind of to be expected when you take a Vel'Koz bot. You lose a little bit of the early AP you get from going for something more mid lane focused, like the Arcane Comet or Electrocute, but at the same time you get a lot of utility, as you were saying, help set up these 2v2 kills. You know, Drippix taking a lot of damage from Solico in the top lane already.
Again, with the likes of the Gangplank, I mean, you do so much damage with your Qs and your passive. I was a little curious why Soko did not actually walk directly on top of that shield, because Drippix, if he tries to walk into him, the Grass Proc had just been used. He had the Trial by Fire as well as the Parlay readily available to do the damage necessarily to Poppy to keep her away. And so maybe, I feel like Soloco is playing a little bit more passively, potentially in this lane against the Poppy than he needs to. And I know Poppy is not to be completely disrespected. Plenty of base damage on that champion, a lot of good armor, especially if she picks up the Buckler near impossible to duel, but I do really like the laning phase for the Gangplank, and I think it will be useful eventually.
Set up for Führer. Here comes the hook from the Nautilus into the knockup. Here comes Führer with the knockup himself as Dragon goes down. Will be first blood for the Cloud Dragon, and I'll call that one worth any day of the week.
For the Cloud Dragon here, especially, I mean, Moonlight Vigil is the big one you're really looking for. I don't think the ultimate from Cinder is particularly useful because getting close to these carries basically means they're dead anyhow. Even the likes of the Anivia in terms of later game stages. So I don't think the Cloud Soul is definitely worth it. If you're looking for
something. The tunnel onto Bandito. He's down 100 health, misses the knockup, but it doesn't matter. Sphere picks up the kill.
Forces him back in, and I'm actually surprised. I don't think Polehammer actually did he get an assist? Okay, he got an assist, but I think that must have been on an auto save. I don't think he hit an ability, so really, really well played there by Fur, knowing he can challenge. And again, that's what I'm saying is when the two of them meet each other, yes, the Olaf has the ability to 1v1, but I think Fuhrer in that case had far superior ability to fight due to his much higher health bar than some of the AD having the equal itemization in terms of jungle pressure.
Yeah, meanwhile in the top lane, Solico stacking up them Silver Serpents. Which upgrade do you think he's going to go for first on the ulti?
That's a tough one. I do know Death's Daughter is pretty decent, if I recall. That's the one with the massive true damage in the middle of it. That's what I think a lot of people go for. I know Additional Waves is pretty nice as well, and there's kind of a conflict of which one you go in this case. The elongated fight isn't going to be there because you've got you have Fresh Lantern and you have you got the Olaf Ragnarok, you got things like that can get people outside of the ultimate very quickly. So in my mind, you'd actually want the Death's Daughter with that true damage in the middle, because if you can only get a wave or two on top of somebody, you'd rather have the much higher burst damage. And that's my personal opinion, because of the ability for them to get out of the ultimate, that those extra waves would be wasted.
Nice ball. Forcing the flash out as wireless.
Best ability in the game, by the way.
Best zoning ability. I love it. I love it. I just like an Z because, once again, 100% true damage on a point-and-click ability. Or not, it's 100% AP scaling on a point-and-click.
It's tough to dispute, I will admit that. But you see right there just the power that Crystallize has. It reminds me of Trundle Pillar, just a lot longer, in the fact that, of course, it's terrain, but even better is, right there, you burn it out from Syndra because you drop it anywhere near her, and then the fear becomes, oh, you might get stunned, you might get stuck in the ultimate, you might get just eat or something like that, and it forces out positioning mistakes from your opposition, whether it's forward or backward, no matter what it is, you can completely take it. And as you said, the perfect zoning tool, one of the best in the game at doing so, and right there's a perfect example. You bring Nautilus, you have your Q flying, getting ready for the gank to come through, and Xylus has to flash, because if you get tagged by anything, you die.
Yeah, and on top of that, on top of that, from Slashdiv, he did a very good job of holding the Q. A lot of times when Anivia will place a wall behind, they immediately go for the Q towards whichever side the enemy's going for, but he holds it, uses the fact that he has to kind of work around that river wall to his advantage, and forces the flash that way.
That's the case. We see back to top lane also. They're trading back and forth so far. There's the
there's the GP ultimate. Poppy gonna pop the W, gets the ultimate down on the Rex side, but the platform's already here from GP. Dripix goes down, and Solico picks up the kill.
Really well played there. If your flashes in to make sure you can try to get something, and a nice Poppy ultimate actually catches him, despite the flash having him burn. I think he was trying to flash over it or something. And Solico does end up falling up for damage because he has the oranges and removes Scurvy, of course. A really, really good ability for gaining back health at low HP value. So already Solico expressing a fair amount of damage. Not much done there by Furor, just a little bit to force out some cooldowns, but enough damage and confidence instilled in the Solico to take that 1v1.
Yeah, and they do go ahead and take the Rift Herald. This is their third Rift Herald of the series, so 100% Rift control thus far.
Again, if you're expressing that real dominance in the neutral objective game has been pretty good. The early dragons haven't gone his way. If I recall, last game Bandito had similar effects in that regard, but I do like the fact that he was able to take and transition that top lane play directly into a neutral objective to grab them the Rift Herald to kind of expand the gold lead even more.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Polehammer has a large wave pushing into him. Should be able to get most of this CS because it is Vel'Koz, but we do see Slashdiv building in towards that Rod of Ages now. I am so glad that people are building Anivia properly. There have been games I've commented where people just immediately go Rod of Ages or immediately go Archangels, and that's just wrong.
I know for a fact that, because I play a lot of Rise as a counterpart, and the itemization early is the same. And the reason why you skip Rod of Ages from time to time tends to be just because you need immediate strength or you need some sort of immediate AP to work with. I guess the same thought would be there for Anivia, but obviously having the Rod of Ages not only increases your health pool, but having that ultimate up gives you a lot of just general healing with the Catalyst of Eons passive, which makes it so valuable.
Frosty gets a nice hook, though. Gets the play back in. Polehammer going to flash out of the box as Poppy gets a stun against the wall. That will be the first kill of the game. Going over to the side of Wulfpack Empire as Polehammer pops the stopwatch. Stays alive for the time being. Rek'Sai pops the ultimate. Gets traded, as it will be a 1-for-1. Frosty, though, almost gets stunned up and is able to path out of the way of the wall. Gets caught up in the Glacial Storm, though, as Slashdiv picks up the kill. 2 for 2 in the bottom lane as the Nautilus respawns.
And there were 5 members here on the bottom side to go for this Infernal Drake, and yet they are not able to actually make the play because of Bandurrito and Frosty's death, because they end up bringing down Polehammer and Dragon Mooncake, who Dragon Mooncake did make an incorrect positioning mistake, gets hooked by the Thresh. I do really appreciate that Polehammer immediately left that situation. Instead of trying to throw a tectonic disruption, throw Qs, anything like that into the situation to pull more attention away from Frosty, instead immediately bails, knowing his support is dead. And yes, you end up going down to Bandurrito on that play, but you do end up getting a lot more for your team in the return. Now Soloco in some trouble because Bandito's topside.
Knockup already lands from Poppy ultimate, though. Bandito has the Ragnarok, gonna get Nax down. I don't even think he needs to pop it to go under tower here. Soloco caught in the hammer, and Bandito picks up the kill.
Rough place to be.
Polehammer, oh no. Caught out by the hook. The play gets the knockup, though, into the ultimate. Gets a lot of damage down. Double up, forced to flash out of the way. Gets some damage down, but he still goes down to Polehammer. It's a trade of 1-for-1 in the 1v2.
Oh my goodness, the Vel'Koz damage is ridiculous. Oh, and Frosty's in a rough position too.
Dodges out the hook, but here comes Fear. Play comes back out. Fear has the knockup, backs up the knockup, and Fear goes on a rampage.
Even worse now, also, I mean, you look at Anivia mid lane, and you have the TP top lane. They're going to stop top lane play, and Anivia pushed out mid with Syndra backing. They get they already got dragged.
On under tower, but she's taking up the turret shots. Here comes the ultimate from the GP. Drippix gets taken out low, but he stays alive. As Bandito gets a kill on the Soloco, pops the Ragnarok, stays alive barely, but Anivia's making her way back up. Drippix now gets onto Anivia, but not able to get the stun through the wall. Drippix just going to auto. 1E should kill Drippix. Actually going to opt for the auto E there. As the Rift gets popped in the bot lane. Moonlight Vigil, though, goes down. Does a bit of damage, but not enough to warrant much more than a back off.
Yeah, it's been really good plays pretty much across the map here for the side of Hard Hat Yellow, and the fact that there's a lot of aggressive plays being made from Wulfpack Empire, and yet they're not accomplishing everything that they want. Yes, they got 2 kills on the Soloco there, as well as the TP and the ultimate, but you ended up with kills on the bottom side of the map, 4 plates with the Rift Herald on the bottom side of the map, as well as Slashdiv, still continuing to pick up gold and resources on this Anivia, which is kind of the whole point of picking the Cinder, was to deny that, because you can't get anything done in other lanes, or you're not able to press that advantage harder. It's really tough.
Dragon Mooncake gets caught up by the Thresh, though. Here comes the ultimate as the Rek'Sai makes his way into the fight. Double up goes down as the knockup lands from Polehammer. Fear is unstoppable, and it's 2 for 0 in the bot lane as the Ocean Drake is not near spawning, but Anivia backs and gets the Rod of Aegis. 13-minute Roa is your target on Anivia, so that's really, really nice.
That is rather nice. And then I want to go back to this bot lane play, because once again, it's rotation from Fuhrer, who's again being a very massive portion of this team. 8 kill participation on 10 kills right now is humongous. But even more terrifying was that Aphelios, because again, if Aphelios doesn't have some sort of frontline or some sort of protection, you saw them just play beach volleyball with him. He knocked him up with the Nautilus ultimate, and then the Titanic Disruption, and then the Rek'Sai also. And he wasn't even on the ground to press auto attack, to press Q, anything at all. Didn't get to play the game because of the CC that they've got available. And that doesn't get better as the game goes on. It only gets easier maybe to position behind the likes of Poppy and Olaf, but they also aren't having a particularly solid game. It's getting a little fearful in my mind to have an Anivia and a Rek'Sai also this fed early in the game.
Yeah, once again, like, Anivia's not supposed to win matchups, and she's 500 ahead of Xylos right now, just off of some very nice rotations. Grabbing some small amounts of lane priority, making these rotations into the side lanes, and punishing the aggressive movements of the Olaf. Anivia does work very well into Olaf, because Olaf hates terrain. It's the one form of CC that he can't Ragnarok through, so it feels nice.
It does. Not to mention, I mean, even if you can't wall him off perfectly, if you slow him down enough to set up your full Glacial Storm, or you set up even a double Q on your Flash Frosh, then the amount of damage you do is the Anivia. It's enough to shred through an Olaf, just because of the fact that he loses so much resistance and kind of ability to sustain against the damage. And yes, it's still terrifying that he's Ragnarocking at you, but a little bit of patience and a little bit of distance that he has to cover extra because of the wall is a lot of damage that he's not going to be able to get back if he doesn't get purely on top of the Anivia.
Yeah, and he still gets full damage from standing in Glacial Storm, even if he's not slowed by it. which does allow you to get the 100% AP scaling under E as the flash gets traded in the mid lane.
I do really like this. As you have said time and time again, the Syndra is a pretty good matchup, if not a really good matchup, into the likes of Anivia. And so far, Dragon Mooncake has made multiple moves up to the mid lane to make sure that the Anivia feels comfortable, burning the flash pretty much off cooldown now twice from Xylos. And that's what's been fantastic, is just making sure that that pressure is there. You play as far up. You can't play as aggressive as you want on the likes of the Syndra if you're fearful for getting ganked, getting caught out by a single Anivia ability, and getting burst out so heavily. And so really, really good resource allotment, making sure Slashdiv has everything he needs.
Bandito in the Death Brush, but he actually gets forced back out by Slashdiv. Stun lands.
Okay, so
Into the RW. Q was off cooldown though, so not able to get the damage on a Frosty.
nothing crazy so far. And again, the dragon looks to be a point of contention on both sides for this first Ocean Dragon, which is a little curious to me because they're tied at Drakes right now. If I were on the side of Wulfpack Empire, I'd be a little
Pole Hammer pops the cleanse into the knock-up, into the ulti. All gets popped from the Olaf, but he still goes down as Dragon Mooncake picks up the kill. Anivia staying alive as she zones off everyone else on the fight. Dripix is around the side, though. Might be looking for Pole Hammer. The Poppy ulti into the pit. Moves Rek'Sai away, but Dragon Mooncake's already here with the root. Flash into the E, gets a shutdown. Now Slashdiv still tries to zone other people out of the fight. Dripix is full health. Slashdiv only about 1/3 has the passive available, though. Here comes Wylos. The Felios from Moonlight Vigil does a lot of damage, and now Anivi's in egg form, but Dripix gets knocked up. Now here comes Dragon Mooncake. The Felios still able to get the damage down. Now Devilweb looking for the trade, gets the double kill. Now looking on to Soloco. Will he be able to get the triple? I don't think he will, as the Dragon still goes over to Rek'Sai. It's a triple for the Aphelios, but he's not able to get the Quadra. 4-4-0.
A really unfortunate situation, all things said and done, due to the fact that, again, Furr got eventually brought down, even though he got the dragon. But more importantly, Pole Hammer is a big amount of your damage, good amount of your zone control because of the Glacial, completely removed from the fight because of Poppy early. And then, of course, Anivia just getting popped out immediately by the Aphelios with that Caliber moonshot. Just fantastic stuff to be able to deny a lot of the zone pressure there as well. So Syndra basically gets to walk in free. She pulled the attention of the Gangplank, who's really the real damage source who could try to bring down the Poppy on the side. And after all things said and done, there was just no damage left here for the side of Hard Hat Yellow. Really well executed fight. I do think that was more anomalaic because, again, Vel'Koz got brought down by Poppy early in that fight. Slashdiv got brought down from a really good combo coming in from Debo Webb. In a more standard 5-on-5, you won't see that likely. Nonetheless, really good takeback of at least one 5-on-5 here for Wulfpack.
Yeah, and the objective still goes over to Hard Hats on Yellow. They keep up their 100% Rift Herald control. Gonna pop that one mid, most likely, and really free up the Anivia to make plays around the map. As the Pen boots almost the combined cost for the Archangel staff as well. And once she gets on the Leandry spike, it's pretty much GG. Frosty forces the flash over the wall. Still gets caught out by Dragon Mooncake. 3-man knockup from the Nautilus ultimate, but here comes the Ragnarok. Still goes down to Pole Hammer as the TP gets channeled in from Solico. Making his way into the fight with Barrels. Gonna actually just take some CS, it looks like. As they only get onto the Olaf.
Yeah, they actually lose top lane tower here off the back of just minions being pushed in and really good damage already. Now, Anivia is still here, but unfortunately the Vel'Koz
the RWE Dragon Mooncake takes the kill away from the Anivia, but just really well played from that wall from Anivia. Pole Hammer gets caught out by the Scatter of the Weak, but stays alive for the time being. And Slashdiv is pretty much online now, has the combined cost completed for the Archangel staff on the back. And Leandry's it's a coming.
That it is, and when that moment arrives, I believe that is the indication of at least the bell tolling here for the side of Wulfpack Empire, because of just how dominant the Anivia can be once those items are complete. I think it was also important to note in that fight, Bandito did get close to the backline with that Ragnarok, as we were alluding to, but the damage coming in from Slashdiv, from Solico, and especially from specifically Slashdiv and Pole Hammer was enough to bring him down before he was able to even get to that backline. Pole Hammer might have been brought down, which wouldn't have been a big deal, but still would have been very, very strong. And you see just how hard it is to access like backline targets here for the side of Wulfpack Empire. Now, if they want to continue that, they need TP flanks, they need flanks around the side, they need Bandito or Dripix or Xylos to be able to get onto backline with some sort of CC, some sort of damage. Otherwise, they're not going to be pressured off. They can siege anywhere they want, and they're going to dominate fights.
Dripix might be caught out here by Fuhrer. This is really, really scary for Wulfpack Empire. Like, you have a Felgos, and he's your only late game in this team comp, and you're already running behind 3k at this 20-minute mark.
Yeah, that turret swing just a second ago, being able to pull 2 mid lane towers as well as top lane tower, was huge. You get a little bit of trade back here for your Syndra, but it doesn't mean too much. I would like to see the side of Hard Hat Yellow shift their vision back up towards the top side jungle, because if they control that, they can threaten Baron, because Vel'Koz does do a fair amount with that true damage procs on the Baron.
Bye, Drippix.
Oh, no.
Bye, Drippix. Bye, Drippix.
It was what's even worse about that play is, like, I was like, oh man, he's dead, and then you have to wait like 5 seconds because this isn't really a bursty composition through a tanky champion, and you're waiting slowly, not being able to play the game, sitting there watching your health bar get ticked down by things like Gangplank ultimate and Nivea ultimate, Vel'Koz hitting you with multiple ability. It's just it's even sadder version of the same kind of death.
Yeah. It's the duality of Poppy. I do think the adaptive helm is better here than it was last game.
Yeah.
As Ragnar gets popped, takes the lantern out. But yeah, like, he does opt for adaptive helm, so that is better than last game where he built that, where he should have built Spirit Visage. But, like, especially into the likes of the Anivia and the Vel'Koz, you're looking at living maybe 3 seconds longer in fights. And where's your damage coming from in that time?
It's coming basically from that regard. So I do say, as you said, the adaptive helm much better in this case. I will say at the moment, Wulfpack Empire do have a very strong Aphelios. They turn immediately on a Thresh, though.
Frosty gets taken down very low as the spooky ghosties go down. Frosty stays alive for the time being, but gets ulted by the Rek'Sai as Troll Hammer forced to use the stopwatch. Ultimate comes out from the Nautilus as he gets stunned up by the Scatter of the Weak. Solico in a bit of trouble here as Anivia tries to zone Drippix off of the fight. They take a lot of damage down onto this Dragon as they get back onto Bandito. He goes down. They want to be able to get the rest of the Dragon. Ult from the Anivia as Wylos gets the Scatter of the Weak kill onto Solico. Dragon still goes over 2 for 1. Slash div now looking for more on his Wylos, not able to get the hook after the flash. It will be 3 for 1 and the Dragon going over to Hard Hat Zone Yellow.
I will say, despite the fact that the Dragons and the Gold are far in advantage right now for Hard Hat Yellow, Wulfpack is not making this easy in terms of fights. They're splitting their members apart. They're making sure if they're clustered in one area, they have to focus from multiple angles, and it's a really smart way to play because Anivia controls really well from one angle. If you play the pure 5-on-5 in terms of front to back, you will never win. It will not happen at all if you're on the team outside of maybe Aphelios getting a pop somehow onto the likes of Slashdiv. But outside of that, there is nothing in terms of pressure that you can bring to the table that will stop that. So I like the fact that Bandito and Zvalios tried to flank from the side while Drippix and the rest of the team were coming from a different side to force 2 directions of defense coming out from the likes of Hard Hat Yellow. But at the moment, there is no response to that double. They need somebody to start popping off, somebody to play around in the side to make sure that they can win one of the 2 sides instead of just kind of holding their own.
Yeah, Zwilios needs to find the burst damage onto the Vel'Koz and the Anivia, and that's really a tall order in these fights. Because Devilweb just... your carries have to be on the opposite side of the fight, and Devilweb doesn't really have a way to burst down these carries.
It's tough, at least, that's for sure. The Aphelios are like the strongest in terms of gold value right now, pretty much across the map. I think the Rek'Sai is the only one that matches that.
Goes up. Here comes the Ragnarok, though, as the terrain comes in. Moonlight Vigil is very nice, though. As Cinder gets killed on a Rek'Sai, the ultimate comes out from the GP. Frosty goes down as Slashdiv picks up the kill with the E. Now popping the ultimate. Walls behind Drippix, forcing the flash. 2 for 1. There's a lot of damage still coming out from the Syndra with the Scatter of the Weak. Gotta be very careful here.
You're able to buy the time here on the side of Wulfpack for your damage to come through. Once again, Diva Web, rather strong. The Syndra, pretty good from range, able to get quite a bit out. And they only get the Rek'Sai, who is kind of really far up in the front line. But you weren't able to make any advancements towards that backline, which is the one fear for this team. Yes, you bring down Rek'Sai. You lost your frontliners in the process. Only Poppy left to try to get in front of the Syndra and the Aphelios. And if they break that Poppy, there's nothing stopping the advance coming in from the likes of the Gangplank, Vel'Koz, things of that sort. So at minimum, they're playing the fight correctly even when they're in the wrong situation, which is kind of a bit of reprieve for Wulfpack Empire. But it is still difficult. You see just how hard it is to break that line of advance when Anivia's around.
Yeah, and speaking of Anivia, Slashdiv actually opting into the Death Cap 3rd item instead of 4th item here. I don't hate it. Typically, if you want to go for an early death cap, you still will go for the Haunting Guys just to get the Madness passive, because that's really good on Anivia, but I don't hate it. She's that far ahead, so...
I would agree. That far ahead, the Rabadon's going to be helpful for breaking down. Again, if you're talking about like pure damage output, I know the extended fight really helps the Haunting Guys, and Leandry's is probably much better than Rabadon's as the fight continues. But if you're talking about the immediate strength into the likes of the Olaf, who's going to be running at you, into the likes of Poppy, who's trying to get onto you, something like that, or especially into non-magic resist targets, something like the Aphelios or the Syndra, I would say Rabadon's is going to have its effectiveness in having that damage get ramped very quickly as well. So maybe that's the thought process, is you don't need the 10 seconds, you don't need the passive on Leandry's to give your yourself more time in fights. It's that the initial point in the fight where you're starting things off needs to be a lot stronger to make sure you can get to the later stages of the fight.
Yeah, and once again, it really helps, as you said, bursting down onto this Olaf. Bandito still is a threat, right? Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that it doesn't look like it, he's 2-6 and 3. I didn't take a look at this gold. He's almost 3,000 gold down on the Rek'Sai.
Yeah,
he still is a threat, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit of it's a bit rough. They are tied in experience, which is the one really good thing, is that Olaf, even against the likes of Rek'Sai, can do some pretty good work against neutral objectives with that E coming in as true damage. Now, Dragon is going to be up here. This is soul point for Ocean Soul, and if you thought before that it's going to be difficult to fight this composition, imagine trying to get such a pure engagement into a team with Anivia and the wall and such that you can get through Ocean Soul. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to happen. It simply will not. Getting that engagement for this team will be impossible, and so they need to make sure that they cannot get this. Really good movement from Hard Hat, making sure they know they have to take this, and they will be almost definitively a win in the game, and so they're not letting access to the river come through.
Nice wall. Sees all 5 there, and you can't take fights from 2 sides if you're out of the way. 10 seconds on the Dragon, though. Solico gets a nice barrel down as the hook lands on to the front line. Here comes the ult from the Nautilus as they look for more. The knockups are there. Frosty goes down. Solico gets the kill. Aphelios with Moonlight Vigil still does a lot of damage as Devweb is pretty much on site for the fight. The Olaf goes down, though, and down goes the Poppy. That's going to be 4. The Devweb still kiting out. Going to try to get a bit of damage out, but it's unfortunate. But the soul goes over to Hard Hat Yellow.
You said it before the fight had started. I mean, you're talking Hard Hat Yellow. Their positioning right there was immaculate. There was no flank angle. They would have had to loop all the way out and in front of the Dragon and come behind, find a TP, go out and around in the laning phase. All things you don't want to do or that take too much time. And you saw them try to take that engagement. The best part of it, in my mind, is yes, you had DPRX, you had Bandito on the front line taking damage, trying to buy space for Aphelios. But more importantly, on the side of the fight was Zylios and Frosty on the one side. Furor was able to get in and find some really good eliminations to push the Syndra out of the fight, and that's about as ideal as you can get. And now Hard Hat, they win the fight, get a further ahead kind of gold lead, 6,000 gold now, and Ocean Soul on their team. This is... I say very often that something doesn't look good. I really honestly do not see a way that a team can fight against an Ocean Soul Anivia composition, especially without really good engage, and I don't see that right now from the side of Wulfpack Empire.
Yeah, it's... I mean, I hate to say it's GG at this point, but it feels like it, right? You have... The only way you can take down the Anivia is if you pick her out right now. She's playing very smartly. Slashdiv is not going into the side waves and split pushing at all, just like playing with the core, which is not typically what you'll see in a late game from an Anivia, but this is really just... He knows that he's his team's damage, and he's playing like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even talking about the team damage. Right now, he is a complete prevention of damage. He's almost like this massive wall that you can't get around, not to mention the literal physical wall you can throw up with Crystallize. But he is this wall in terms of his zone control with Qs, ults, Ws, things of that sort, to prevent a team from accessing backline. And then the rest of your team, you got Vel'Koz, who is this ridiculous siege mage, able to do a lot. You've got the likes of the Gangplank, who can get barrel change into backlines, into front lines that do relative true damage, and your ultimate is able to put pressure onto carries, and then Furor, who's literally diving backline targets all during that process. It's this composition that's set up perfectly to use this Anivia as a defensive tool to allow yourself to play aggressively in the way you're supposed to, and they're executing it extremely well. Right now, you do have Soloco on a side lane pushing in a different wave of Baron minions, and Anivia is near impossible to clear against with this wall, with this ultimate under tower. I think they just have to let this siege down and try not to lose the game off the back of this push.
Yeah, and Solico just, I mean, taking pressure away from the mid lane. Mid lane inhib tower goes down as Drippix tries to trade that one out. That'll be the inhib as well, unless they can find an engage onto Polehammer, but look at his positioning. He's just so well played. So well positioned right now.
And now the team actually rotating as well, so they have minions to deal with the mid lane, which Aphelios is doing, and they're almost got this bottom tower as well. Might just need a desperation kind of something. I don't think they could even take a desperation fight at this point. Just let them take the inhibitor and try not to lose, because at the moment you're in such a bad place. I don't see them able to win anything.
That was a nice scatter of the week, though, right? As Lilas can get the God scatter, it can be all over, but here comes the hook into the play, into the box. Aphelios gets a nice Moonlight Vigil, but here comes the ultimate from the Vel'Koz, gonna do most of the damage. Spur goes on a killing spree. There goes the Poppy. There goes the Olaf. There goes the Thresh. They're gonna push in onto this bot lane inhib. They're gonna look for the end here, most likely. Devil Web gets ulted by the Nautilus and will end up falling. And that's it. GG. Hard Hat Zone Yellow move on to the next round 2-0.
The opportunity of window here for Wulfpack was really, really difficult to execute on, and I don't blame them for not being able to, but you had to identify that early in this game, and they weren't able to. Anivia got way too far along. Somehow they found kills, they found gold advantages in the top lane as well. You got, Führer was another beastly game from him as well. And somehow, what should have been a rough early game ended up being almost advantageous for them. And once they get to the team fighting stage of this game, it was all over from that point. Polehammer doing too much, Slashdiv, this complete zoning tool, and then even Führer and Soloco doing way too much. It was just a very definitively composition win coming out from the side of Hard Hat Yellow.
Yeah, and if we look at the damage graphs, right, the Anivia didn't do all that much damage compared to the rest of the team here, which is almost to be expected because the game was over at 32 minutes. Anivia doesn't win damage charts unless the game goes another 5 minutes at least. So, just, the Anivia did so much in that fight, but in that game. But once again, that Rek'Sai did a lot. This game, though, I think that Vel'Koz pick really kind of threw a wrench in Wulfpack Empire's plans, and I don't know if they were able to deal with that properly.
I agree, especially with the Anivia pick. And here's the thing is, like, even if you swap that out for something like Misfortune, I don't think it does any worse because it's the same idea where you have, the really good team fighting ultimate, good consistent damage. I think the range was really what gave Polehammer all of the definitive advantage that you had in that one because you cannot walk into the Anivia, and you especially can't walk into the Vel'Koz and Anivia combination. You sound that out. Bandito somehow in that last fight got snuck onto the backline, but once the Zonias was done for Polehammer, he dies when he tries to flash onto the backline. There's nothing that you can do there. And again, the Anivia was the linchpin of the composition, not the driving force behind the damage, but the driving force behind preventing damage. There's no stat that can track how much zoning did you do against Debo to prevent him from fighting into your composition. But what you can track is the fact that the rest of this team did so much damage because they were able to free fire. And I do think Slashdiv's performance and the champion itself was indicative of that. This, again, really good compositional execution from Hard Hat Yellow, and they take a quick 2-0 over the side of Wulfpack Empire.
So I feel like this is already a foregone conclusion, but who do you give MPV in the game 2 for? Or in for game 2?
In for game 2. That's actually a really tough one because I do think Polehammer did quite a bit of work. Führer also, once again, absolutely insane in both games in terms of kill pressure. I think in this one, I'm going to give it to Polehammer, but for the series, Führer absolutely wins it in my eyes just because Polehammer did so much damage, was all the amount of poke that you would have, and you really relied on the siege engine of the Vel'Koz to drive this Anivia composition, preventing someone to step in. But Führer's performance through both games in terms of vision control, early pressure, ganking for lanes that normally would not. If you told me you're ganking for a Gangplank and a Anivia and then like a Vel'Koz, like it doesn't usually amount to much, but somehow Führer made it work, and his performance in both games was admirable. So yeah, game 2, I'll give it to Polehammer. Game 3, I'm giving it to Führer, or my apologies, for the series, Führer did amazing stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Hard Hats on Yellow definitely showing up these last 2 weeks in playoffs. They're going to move on to the third round of the lower bracket next week. So we'll see if they can continue to make things work there, as next week will be an upper bracket broadcast here on the Upsurge Esports Twitch channel. Any final thoughts before we end tonight's broadcast?
No, fantastic series. I really like the way in reach for them in game 2. It really did come back to comp difference, and you can't blame yourselves for not being able to play into Anivia. It's not an easy champion, and Hard Hat Yellow, they're making a name for themselves. I really do think their drafting, their performance has been absolutely admirable, and I don't think they're somebody to take lightly coming into the later stages of the lower bracket.
Yeah. All that being said, though, that's all the time we have for tonight's broadcast. So, from everyone here at Upsurge, the admins, production crew, league staff, and everyone in between, my name is Finnick. That's Rebel Fox, and we will see you next week.
The Fire website's